I made a New Year's resolution that, since everybody loved Chuck so much last week for it, that I will not make fun of Kyle during the sermon, even though Chuck did. This year. No, not. And how long do New Year's resolutions usually last? 30 seconds? I haven't started the sermon yet. What is it, like 13 days or something like that? Because we know I ain't going to diet. What, a week? It is my goal, not just today, for my New Year's resolution to last 3 weeks. We'll see? Okay. Well, yeah, that's just news. You might call me out on it, like you. Okay. Time to start talking about Kelsey. But so we just had New Year's, and somehow, some way, I've gotten the reputation that I'm not a big New Year's guy. It might be because every year New Year's I talk about not being a big New Year's guy, but. And I was talking to Katie about this week, and I want to correct it a little bit. Sometimes I play it up a little bit just for either laughs or for conversation and whatnot. But I mean, it is true that, again, I'm one of those nothing changes on New Year's Day type attitudes towards New Year's. But I do recognize that the day itself being on the calendar does give us a good excuse to look at new beginnings, gives us a good excuse to look at hope. Which we should be doing all year, but to me it's kind of like Thanksgiving. To be honest, I'm not a big Thanksgiving guy either because I don't like turkey, but I do like family, and I do think it has value to be there to remind us that we should be in gratitude all year long, so it is a good opportunity to talk about hope and new beginnings. So we're going to lean right into that sucker today, as we're going to talk about Paul and get into this particular study. Now this study easily could be a series, but this is going to be kind of a series in a can. It's a 1 week, shove it all together type study. And there's going to be a lot of different bullet points within it. My note takers, I hope that you take all the bullet points, but I do want to say this up front for all of us. All of us are in different places. All of us have different places that we're at with the Lord right now. So different bullet points are going to mean different things to you in this moment. It's good to have all of them for your own life. It's good to have all of them for your own encouragement in your ministry, because again, we are all called to ministry if we accepted Jesus as leader and forgiver in our lives. So all of it is good. But if you come across ones like, okay, that's where I'm at today, or that's where I've been struggling, or that's where I've been failing right now, make sure you grab a hold of that, and we'll bring them back together at the end and see what we come to find what the Spirit has for us today. Sound good? I want to, but I'm not going to. No, does it sound good? Everybody in? Okay. Didn't hear Kelsey say anything. Okay. So let's open our Bibles up. Let's grab them out. Again, there's Bibles underneath the chairs and the baskets around the room if you need those. Make sure you check in. Make sure that everything else, share it out, connect. Make sure you do all those fun things as we go to Acts chapter 9. And we're going to dig into where I think we usually would begin when it comes to Paul's new beginning, when he comes to the Lord. We're going to start there, but we will dance around before and after as we go. In this particular section, let's assume somebody watching this knows nothing about Paul. What you do need to know about Paul at this particular point is that he starts out as Saul. We always talk about Paul the Apostle. We don't talk about Saul from Tarsus as much, but he was born Saul. He was a religious man. We'll talk about that as we go, but he was not a Christian. He was very anti-Christianity and was a persecutor of the faith. If you know those few things, then you're going to know enough to be able to read this particular scripture, and then we'll go more into detail here in a few moments. But he is a persecutor, and he is going to a new area to be able to persecute when we get to Acts 9, verse 3. So this is how it reads. It says, "Now, as he went on his way, he approached Damascus." This is Saul. "And suddenly a light from heaven shone around him. And falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying to him, 'Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?' And he said, 'Who are you, Lord?' And he said, 'I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But rise and enter the city, and you will be told what you are to do.' The men who were traveling with him stood speechless, hearing the voice, but seeing no one. Saul rose from the ground, and although his eyes were open, he saw nothing. So they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. And for 3 days he was without sight, and neither ate nor drank. So usually when we talk about this particular section of Scripture, we talk about what I've done so far. This is what he used to be, but he comes to the Lord, a new beginning, new start. Look at his life now because of Jesus Christ. But I think there's value not to jump off of Saul too quickly. I think whenever we come up against a new beginning or a testimony of a new beginning, we jump off of that a little bit too fast. And when we understand the background better, then we have the dark backdrop of the sky, like we talked about with the shepherds, so that the glory of the Lord shines more. So let's talk about who Saul was when he was Saul. For instance, he took and became a disciple of Gamaliel, which was a very prominent, you know what I'm trying to say, but prominent rabbi at the age of 15. We talked often when you're a Jewish boy, you get sent to the synagogue when you're very young, kind of about the age of kindergarten. You study. For those who do well, they continue in. They get assigned a rabbi. Those who don't become fishermen, tax collectors, tent makers. And in this case, Saul did very well to the point that he was assigned a prominent rabbi. And you're going to see him talking about that in Acts 22:3 if you want to know that reference of where I pull that from. So at a young age, he is already in the top class. He's in the special honorary class. And it seems that he does extremely well, because the next thing that we know about him is that in his 20s, he has a lot of power and a lot of authority. So if you take and look at, again, this well-studied young man who's excelled, and we go back a little bit into Acts chapter 7, we're going to see where he has this power and authority that you normally would no way, shape, or form have. And what we're looking at in Acts 7, you're going to look at the story of Stephen. So just a little recap on Stephen. Stephen is a Christian. Stephen was chosen by the apostles with some other men to be the first, how we define deacons biblically, that they were over the food to be able to help widows, to help people in poor. And so he had this special role, he had a prominent role, and because of his Christianity and because of his witness, he is executed and he is stoned to death. And when we find Paul, we find him over here, we find that at the time of this, and the stoning of, let me see if I can get the exact verse for you here. Where did I find that at? Verse 58. There it is. That they cast him out of the city, they stoned Stephen, and the witnesses laid down their garments at the feet of a young man named Saul. Now, what does that mean? As Saul standing there at the first Christian martyr, what does that mean? That's answered in chapter 8, verse 1. Saul approved of the execution. That Saul had the authority to approve of someone being killed because of Christianity. And so he has really excelled in his life, and he's using that influence, he's leveraging that position to destroy Christianity. As you go into chapter 8, verse 2, look at some of the things that are said about him. There arose on that day a great persecution against the church of Jerusalem, and they were all scattered throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria, except for the apostles. Devout men buried Stephen and made great lamentation over him, but Saul was ravaging the church, and entering house after house, he dragged off men and women and committed them to prison. When you break this down, we have a picture of someone who's very troubling. Someone who is very lost, someone who's very gone, so stuck into the law that they have no openness to the one who fulfilled the prophecy that he had committed his life to. So committed to the power and the authority and the track that he had planned for his life, where he was doing better than anybody else as the person that's graduating at the very top of the top, and everything he has no room in his heart for Jesus Christ or anyone who would say anything different than his own beliefs. That to the point that when he gives this approval of Stephen's death, it is the start of a season. It's the start of something. And so there is a great persecution led by Saul against the brothers and sisters. It says he ravaged the church. Ravage means cause severe or extensive damage to. He ravaged the church. He was going house to house to find Christians and drag them out of their homes to put them in prison or have them put to death. I know I've seen movies, maybe you've seen movies as well, where like it's olden days and they're in a castle and they're going house to house, dragging people out and they're crying and they're screaming and please don't take daddy and all the different things that are going on and animals running around like that. This is that scene. He's going house the house, into your homes, dragging you out. And not just the men, which is what the culture would have allowed for at the time in this type of crusade that he is on, but he's also dragging out the woman. That would be unthought of during this time in this culture. Again, they're property. They're there to take care of the kids and take care of the house. But he was dragging out moms, he's dragging out dads, the kids are crying. He's dragging them out to be arrested and to have them killed. He is committing them to prison. When we bring in 9, verse 1, it says he's breathing out threats. He's not just making threats. I mean, this is everything in his being is to destroy Christians. He's breathing threats. He's breathing out murder towards those that are Christians. So much so at this point, he's done all the damage he can do in Jerusalem, and he says to the Sanhedrin, can I have letters of authority to go to other cities and do the same? And they say yes. So when we think of Saul, before his new beginning, we must realize how bad it was. We always make Herod the Great, right? He's a bad guy during Christmas time. He took and killed his wife. He killed 3 of his sons. He had all the little boys 2 years old and younger destroyed with a massive attack and murder across the region. He's horrible, horrible. We talk about different emperors of Rome that have gone against Christianity, that they took and killed James, that killed Peter, that brought to execution. We hear about those people and we're just like, that's hideous, that's overwhelming. And our days now, when we look at things like ISIS, or we look at things like even Hitler, if we go back several years, millions of people are wiped out by this man's genocide. This is the level that Saul is. If you're a Christian, there's no doubt, kill them, arrest them, throw them into the lion's den. We have to realize what Saul came from, to realize the magnitude of God's grace. Magnitude of God's grace. I'll be honest, I think all of us struggle in our theology if we think that Hitler could have accepted Jesus before he took his life and died and went to heaven. It's a theological truth that I struggle with. This is who Saul was. It was with that backdrop that we see his grace. So let me say 2 things with that. First off, Paul agrees that he was messed up. I'll give you the scripture with the help of Chris in 1 Timothy. When he's writing to one of his disciples, he says, the saying is trustworthy and deserving of full acceptance, that Christ Jesus came into the world to save sinners, of whom I am the foremost. But I received mercy for this reason, that in me, as the foremost, Jesus Christ might display his perfect patience as an example to those who were to believe in him for eternal life. He was one messed up, jacked up dude. And there's some reasons we look at this. Now, Chuck joked last week about pastors doing 3 points. Do you guys remember him talking about that? That's honestly a thing. I mean, like if you read, like when you're starting out and stuff, if you read books on preaching or whatnot, almost everybody says, have one main point, work it into a really cool saying so that you guys remember it all week long, and then break it into 3 points. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I really violate that suggestion. Today we're going to violate the crap out of it. Because like I said, we've got tons of points. But on this first part, before we even get to his new beginning, there are 3 points that I'd like to share with you of what this means to us and why we should spend the time on it. The first one, again, we'll put these up on the screen with the help of Chris, is this. There's no such thing as I'm unsavable. In no way, shape, or form is there anything that matches up to I'm unsavable. And I talk to people who are kind of on the extreme of that often. The people that, if I walked in that church, the ceiling would fall down on me or the roof would fall down, or there's no way, that's all good for you guys, but you don't know what I've done and where I'm at and how bad it is. You get those folks. And Paul is saying, no, that's not true. Unless if you've been going house to house, pulling people out and murdering them, you haven't even compared to me yet, and I received mercy. And the thing is why we come across those extreme situations, I come across the lighter version of that all the time. All the time. Even with people who've accepted his grace, who decide to live in guilt. Even people who have accepted his love and his mercy and his grace, but continue to hold on to things of their past that they have done. Saul is very much making it clear, he saved me so that you know you're good, you're covered. You know I want to make fun of that, but I can't. No, wait, Kyle didn't do it. Let me read that point again. There's no such thing as I'm unsavable. Let's pray. No. Let me give you another one that goes along with this. There is no such thing as they are unsavable. There's no such thing as they are unsavable. And this is the thing that keeps us humble. It keeps us from getting cocky as Christians. Some of us, we are quick to accept the mercy and the grace, but we have people in our lives that we think they are unforgivable. We have situations in our lives where we kind of wish they weren't forgivable because of what they've done to us. Or maybe just they've been in prison, they've been in dealing with addiction, or they're dealing with things that I don't understand personally, so you think, man, they're just too far gone. There is no such thing as they are unsavable. And you need to know that, or you're going to hinder the ministry that God wants to do through you. Does that make sense? There is no such thing as they are unsavable. And then the third one I'll give you out of this, since we're putting much into one week, I won't go too far into it, but there's no reason to stop reaching out to someone. There's no reason to stop reaching out to someone. Here's one thing I know about God. God reaches out to people no matter where they're at and what they're going through. He does. It's just whether or not we listen. I know in my worst of days, I can tell you all the times God tried to reach out to me and all the times I kept on trying to brush him off, with logic or whatnot. And if we get to the point that we think, well, I invited him to church twice and he said, no, I guess that's the answer. I guess I'll just give up. How weak are we? How uncommitted are we? Not to show them Jesus, tell them Jesus, invite them to Jesus. That's what we're here for. That's what we are here for. There's no such thing as stop reaching out to someone. And some of us can look at some of those things and see the challenges we have. We must do the work that God calls us to in our lives. Now listen, this stuff is normal. It's part of our DNA because our DNA is sinful. If you look at the whole story of Jonah and the well, the whole problem Jonah had is God wanted him to go tell the Ninevites to repent, and he didn't want to because they're not Israelites and I don't want anything to do with them. And when he finally did go, because God forced him to go, and he told them to repent or else you will be destroyed, and they repented, Jonah got mad because he didn't want to see something good for them. It's in our sinful DNA, even within the heroes of our faith. But there is no such thing as unsavable. In this particular case, we see that Jesus comes to him, and he has this incredible situation, not just a vision, but that he goes blind. And we see that God is moving those situations that we think are unmovable. This vision, you got the blindness. He now has a need, which brings humility, which now takes and humbles him before the Lord, and he needs help. God did that on purpose. The person that you think is unsavable, that you have kind of given up on, God is working in their life to set up a conversation for you that he'll lead you into and lead you through. In this particular case, he's going to Damascus, right? Everybody in Damascus knows he's coming. All the Christians are hiding the best that they can. All of a sudden, this one guy named Ananias, God comes to him and says, Ananias, and Ananias goes, here I am, God. Whatever you need, I'm all in, just like Jonah did. He said, good. Because there's this guy named Saul. Yeah, heard of him. And he needs you to go to him and minister to him. I've been working on him. And he said, but God, there's a reason I'm in my back closet. Why would I go to him? Do you imagine God putting it on the heart of a Jewish person during World War II, hiding behind a false wall, go talk to Hitler because I have something for you to do? I don't know if I would do it or not. I really don't. I'd like to think I would. I don't know if I would. But Ananias went to him and he said, Brother Saul, the Lord has sent me to you. Receive your sight. And that was the start of his new beginning. No one is too far gone. You're not. They're not. And we definitely cannot stop doing the work of the ministry just because someone might have hurt us along the line. Now maybe, again, healthy boundaries. God has a lot of us for a reason. But we've got to be doing our part. We've got to be doing our part. But nonetheless, that leads to this. Ananias goes to him, and he does accept the Lord as leader and forgiver in his life, and we do have a new beginning. But I want to spend some time there because sometimes we in the church skim over some of the toughest parts about new beginning. So I want to hit the highs and the lows within this. So when we're talking about new beginning, what we're talking about is walking away from the old life and having new. Having a new beginning, be able to lean into what he created us for in the first place, not what we've set ourselves up for, and to be able to have a new life with forgiveness, grace, mercy, power, purpose, provision. Okay? So the first thing we've got to talk about, if we're going to write down these bullet points, we're going through a list and whatnot, is we've got to just talk about the power of the gospel. We've got to talk about the power of the gospel. Yeah? Yep. And this is where we take something that is so incredibly overwhelming and turn it into such a cute little nugget that doesn't impact our lives anymore. For when Jesus did what he did, and when he accomplished what he did, and he had the victory of what he did through the cross and through the resurrection, and opened up the door that we may accept him as leader and forgiver in our life, and again, we'll say this every week, to take and just acknowledge that he's the Son of God, to believe in our hearts he died and rose again, and to follow him, to say, I'm done doing this, I need you, so this life is yours, I'm following you, you are my God, I don't want to play this game anymore, then you are saved, and everything from that past is wiped out. I think there's wisdom to remembering that Christ has forgotten all that, but I think there's wisdom for us to say, at one point, maybe someone thought I was too far gone. I remember what it was like before I was serious with the Lord. I remember the goofball that I am. I talk to my wife, I talk to my kids, I talk to friends. If there's anything you like about Tom, you can either think Bill and Nancy Hypes or God himself. That's it. Because I know the man I am inside. I know the struggles that I have that God has given me victory over, and I know the struggles I have that I still struggle with in the light of Jesus Christ. And if I forget that, then I start thinking that I'm a little bit better than who I really am in myself without Christ. And I start to take everything for granted. I start to get watered down. I start thinking that I can do things all by my lonesome. And that's the stuff that led me to the problems in the first place. So we have to look at the power of the gospel that took Saul, knocked him off his horse, gave him blindness, and say, let's get serious and let's have a talk here. So that we have that in the forefront with our new beginnings. I think sometimes we skip over that part so fast. It's just new beginning and it's great and it's going to be joyful from now on and I don't have any problems anymore. That's not how it goes. That's not how it goes. Let's be serious about it. It's a decision to lean into a life that's contradictory to the world. It's a decision to lean into a life that's contradictory to what I want. It's a whole different lifestyle. So let's talk about some of the things that come with it. Next thing is this. There will be ripple effects. There will be ripple effects. One thing I love about his grace when I accept him as leader and forgive my life is that his forgiveness is there. But I've lived some life that there's going to be some ripple effects from that point on. One of the ripple effects, Ananias' fear. The one who gets to be chosen to go forward to help Saul and get him on this new, didn't want to go. Why? Because Saul was a jerk. He has a new beginning now, but for years he had a reputation that preceded him. That wasn't the only thing he had to go through. In Acts 9:21, when he starts preaching, and we'll talk about that in a second here. He starts preaching, and you look in Acts 9, again, 21, it says, isn't this the guy that was ravishing the church? Isn't this the guy? In other words, you have a good message going on right now, but aren't you like a sinner? Don't I know this story about you? And we have that in our lives. When you accept Jesus to lead and forgive your life, there's going to be people that say, yeah, but I remember how you were in high school. I remember how you were when we were going out drinking together. I remember how you were when you had that affair. I remember how you were when these allegations came out against you about beating your kid. Whatever the case would be, there's ripple effects of what people think of you from the challenges that are there. He had other ripple effects as well. When he went to meet with the disciples, wouldn't that be just a cool first meeting for Paul to come in and meet the disciples? The great persecutor comes in, and he sits down with Peter and James and John and everything. When he came to them, they wouldn't meet with him. According to the Bible, they were scared of him because he's Saul. So there was no first meeting, at least the way that they wish, or we wish it would be. That's one of the reasons why I think the Bible's real, is because they don't exactly make us all look great all the time. But here's the thing. When you have ripple effects, God would lead you through those, carry you through those, guide you through those. In Saul's case, when the disciples would meet with him, there was a guy named Barnabas, right? We just did a character study on him a few months ago. Barnabas was the encourager. Barnabas wasn't even his name. That's what they called him because he was so much an encourager. Had such a strong reputation with the apostles that he took Paul and went to the apostles and said, you need to meet with us. And they said, we'll meet with you. He used his reputation. He used his encouragement to leverage it for the purpose of the kingdom of God, even with the apostles, so that they met with Paul and saw that beginning. He's the one that took him to Antioch because nobody else really wanted to deal with him. Now, in time, that became part of his testimony. In time, he was one of the top leaders that we have of the apostles of Jesus Christ. But there was some ripple effects for him to go through. So if you made mistakes in the past, God's forgiveness is there. But the rest of the world saw. Other people have been hurt. And he'll lead us through it. Many of you have heard the story that I shared at my mom's funeral of the pivotal moment of my life. I have one with my dad that I'll share with him sometime because I know he's watching right now. And I have one with my mom. And with Mom, it was after I was arrested. Again, I'll do the short form of this. Still money for a place I worked at. Was completely publicly humiliated by my own actions. Lost my friends, lost my job, lost reputation, the whole 9 yards. And outside of stealing money, I was a great Christian. And so I was taking people to church, and I was looking at maybe doing something within the area of ministry that God took out because I needed laid out to look up like Saul did. And when I was at my worst, and I was talking to my mother, and I'm just sobbing, Mom said, that, again, just life-changing for me, they've seen what you've done. She didn't want to like watch or anything. Yes, they've seen what you've done. Now they're watching to see what you do. That is the very pivotal statement when it comes to ripple effects in our lives. Everything's in the past. It's just whether or not you give it to Christ and whether or not you change and move forward. The next thing I'll share with you on this, it kind of changes gears a little bit, is this. You can make a difference now. If you're somebody who just had a new beginning and you're just starting out in the faith and you don't know this book frontwards and backwards and you can't go up against some kind of Bible trivia quiz, it's okay. You can be doing ministry now. You're going to notice one thing with Paul is that when he came to the Lord, he immediately started preaching. Immediately started preaching. What? One, he did have a lot of Bible knowledge. I'll give that now he sees from a different perspective. But more than anything else, he had a testimony. He had a testimony. And when you have a testimony, you can start sharing immediately, and you're responsible to do it as the Spirit leads. Testimony is simply this. Anytime that you have a situation in your life, Jesus steps in, and this is the difference he made, that's a testimony. I used to be a persecutor. I saw him on the road to Damascus, and now he's called me to a life of glory. You have testimonies from the first time you come to know Jesus to what he did yesterday with the crap that you pulled. It's testimonies. And you have that testimony to go forward. One of my favorite sermons in the New Testament is the blind man. Do you guys remember this? The blind man that Jesus healed on the Sabbath? It's in Acts. I wish I had the reference for you. I'll have to get it out to you. It's an awesome, awesome, awesome sermon. Because he got saved on the Sabbath. Everybody is like wowed. All the religious leaders are like, what the heck? Why is this Jesus doing this? Why is he healing on the Sabbath? He's not allowed to heal on the Sabbath. And they're having this big war over it. And they don't see Jesus, so they all focus in on the guy that just got healed. And they're saying to him, praise God that you got healed, but you need to know that this man is of Satan. And I used that reference correctly this week. He's of Satan, and he is not somebody that you want to get. And the guy preached this sermon, a beautiful sermon. I don't know anything about any of that. All I know is I couldn't see before, and now I'm healed. I have a story to share of God's goodness in my life. So never forget, you always can share with others, and the Holy Spirit will lead you if you're willing to go with him. And in Paul's case, we see in Damascus, that he immediately was preaching that he's the Son of God. He was proving Jesus was the Christ. This is what the Scripture says in Jerusalem. He was boldly preaching the name of Christ. And as he grew, he had more leverage. He had more information. We're all called to discipleship. We're all called to grow more. But right now, you can be taking and proclaiming the goodness of God. Another thing that he did to be able to continue his relationship with the Lord and to continue to move forward with others, and you know this is my hot button, is he connected with others. He connected with others. He didn't go out and just do the Paul Man one-man band show. He connected with others. He had a mentor. His mentor was Barnabas, and he learned under him for many years. He was in submission to the other apostles. When you see the big conflict that happened in Antioch in Acts 13, it's a beautiful picture of how church should take and act when it comes to divisive issues within the church. And he was in submission to the other apostles. They went to the church in Jerusalem. They went to be able to talk to James, the bishop, who, again, was the half-brother of Jesus that denied Jesus was the Son of God and thought he was crazy and tried to stop him his entire life until after his resurrection. So he definitely was built in there. He had his own disciples. Whatever you have the responsibility to push on to others. So he had Timothy, he had Titus, he had others. Pretty much anytime you read any of his letters, you get to the end of it, he names people galore that he's investing into. And he had church family. Now, the church family one, some people say, yeah, but he was in Ephesus and he was here and he was there and everything. Yes, he went on 2 mission trips, but wherever he was at, he was invested into church family very passionately. A lot of his writing was to these churches saying that he missed them or how much he cherished them or how thankful he is to hear about their faithfulness and how important all of this comes together. If we look at, I won't make you go there, I'll read it for you, but in one of the churches that he was called to was Church of Ephesus. And I like this one because he went there, he led people to the Lord, he moved them into leadership. He started the church, he put the very foundation of the church into place, and then the Spirit came to him and told him, you're going to be leaving and you're never coming back. He'd been there for a couple years, but he knew that he was going to die before he came back. So he brought these elders, these people he brought to the Lord together and said, this is what the Holy Spirit's revealed to me. I'm never coming home. And when he said these things, this again is Acts 20, verse 36. When he said these things, he knelt down and prayed with them all. And there was much weeping on the part of all. They embraced Paul, they kissed him, being sorrowful most of all because of the word he had spoken, that they would not see his face again, and they accompanied him to the ship. He has a deep community connection with those that are around him, even the ones that he is leading and ministering to himself. One of the things about COVID that I think we'll see, not just now, but especially in the future, is what we as Christians believe when it comes to community. In a season where community is discouraged, I think we will see at the other end of this what we believe about Christian community and what the importance is of the church in our lives. The predominant view, when you look at for things from a church consulting standpoint, is that we will lose 20% of those who go to church by the time that the pandemic is done. We don't feel the same way we used to. We're out of the habit. It's easier to watch from home. All those type of things coming into place. It will reveal whether or not we truly believe in Christian community or not. I think it's the closest thing we'll have to actually making Christianity illegal on who's in and who's not when it comes to these things. One of the most encouraging things I've seen, and we have had some people who say, well, and I mean, they have told me they're not coming back. And then we have others. And I like to honor others. So I'll honor Dell and Cheryl Hoare right now. If there's anybody in our church that should not be here during COVID, it's Dell Hoare. Love him. I know he's watching right now. I don't know if I'll get in trouble for any of this or not. Hi, Dell. Put Emily on the list too. But Dell and Cheryl both so badly want to be here with you people. I can't tell you how many weeks I've gotten a text on Tuesday saying, we're coming. We're coming. Just pray through. Be safe. Be safe. And either we hide them in this back corner with his oxygen machine, or by Sunday morning I get a text saying, we are so brokenhearted that we can't come. They, more than anybody else that I know, so want this season to be gone so that they can be with their church family because it means so much to them. That's someone I look to and get challenged by Dell and Cheryl, who grieve it instead of just looking for a new normal. I think we'll be revealing some hearts as we go. The next one I'll give you is this, and this is a huge one, and it's one that's going to become a little bit of a challenge here in just a little bit. But we need to learn how to be content with sacrifice. There's one thing we need to learn from Paul. I only have 2 more points for you, and this is one. When we look at Paul's life of what it could have been compared to what it is, there was a lot of sacrifice. There's a section when he's writing to the church of Corinth, and I'll just read this to you as well. It's 2 Corinthians 11. He's dealing with a situation where people are kind of boosting themselves up as, look how great of a Christian I am. And he's writing into this, and he says this. He says, whatever anyone else dares to boast of, I'm speaking as a fool, I also dare to boast of. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they offspring of Abraham? So am I. Are they servants of Christ? I am a better one. I know I'm talking like a madman. With far greater labors, far more imprisonments, with countless beatings, and often near death. 5 times I received at the hands of the Jews the 40 lashes less 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. Night and day I was adrift at sea. On frequent journeys and dangers from rivers, dangers from robbers, dangers from my own people, danger from Gentiles, danger in the city, danger in the wilderness, danger at the sea, danger from false brothers, and toil and hardship. Though many a sleepless night, and hunger and thirst, often without food, and cold and exposure. And apart from other things, there is the daily pressure on me of my anxiety for all of the churches. Who is weak and I'm not weak? Who is not made to fall and I'm not indignant? If I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. Come be a Christian. We want you. It's a venture. Listen, if you're going to follow Christ, and for several, and I'm not talking about accepting Him as leader and forgiving your life, because many of us, I know this room, many of us have accepted Jesus as leader and forgiver in our lives. But if you're going to follow Jesus, you better get really comfortable with sacrifice, because you don't get what you want. You don't just get to do whatever you want. I've now given my life to something better. I've now given my life back to what it's supposed to be. And I've got a wicked, sinful DNA that will want otherwise, that I'm constantly struggling and needing Jesus for. You better get ready for some sacrifice. Because if you're not sacrificing, if you can't sit here right now and say, this I've sacrificed for my life, I like that sin. Boy, do I like that sin. Or I like where this relationship would have led. Or I like this and that. And you have not sacrificed, or you can't acknowledge any sacrifice in your life that you made for Jesus. Not just, hey, I'm down and out, so I'll say that's a Jesus thing. If you don't know of anything that's sacrificed for Jesus, there's a good shot you're off track. It's a lifestyle for us. This is not a home. This is not our mission. I mean, as far as what I want for my life, Jesus might call me something very different, because the kingdom of heaven is more. It's better. It's perfect. And God doesn't always think the way that Tom does. Thank God. So be content with sacrifice. And then the last one I'll give you, and then I'll talk just a few more moments, is this. Run the race to win. Run the race to win. This has been a weird time for everybody when it comes to loss, for different reasons. I don't think it's just COVID, but for different reasons. I know that officiating my mother's funeral just a little over a year ago is one of the hardest things I've ever done. Then to officiate her best friend, lifelong best friend since middle school, graveside service about 2 weeks ago was very challenging. And I think we're all kind of in this place where we're not surprised when we hear about someone passing or seeing somebody in the hospital. It's a tough season right now. I'm also at that place in my life where I'm starting to think about what does retirement years look like, because like New Year's, I don't believe in retirement. I believe we're called to ministry till the day we die, but I know I won't be the guy up here for the rest of my life. So what does that look like? How does those things come into play? So just you get in those seasons, and this is kind of what Paul's at when he writes this particular verse that he has, where he's coming to the end of his race. And I believe we have 2 Timothy 4:7 loaded up there, Chris, where he writes this to his disciple. I have fought the good fight. I finished the race. I've kept the faith. I pray I can say this on my deathbed. I really do. But the one thing that we have to know today is this. The decisions you make today dictate whether or not you get to that statement. What you do today dictates that, instead of regrets, missed opportunities, or years that you feel are wasted. Now, don't get me wrong. God will use anything to His glory, because He's cool like that. But Saul was very happy that he stopped the old life so he could focus on the new. We've got to be able to run the race. So look, I was thinking about this. Now, I know it's going to be a weird illustration, but hopefully it comes back around some way. When I was a younger man, in my late 20s, probably about the time that Paul had his new beginning, I, again, was operation manager for a company called Tuxedo Classics, and we brought in for a staff meeting a guy talking about investments. And he came in, he shared with everybody. A lot of our staff were younger, especially around prom time. We would have a lot of 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds in the stores, and he was talking about investing as a young person. And he shared the statistics that, I mean, I'm not going to get the numbers right anymore, but it's something like if you save like $50 a month starting now, you'll have $16 billion by the time you retire, right? And everybody's like, oh, that sounds good, that sounds good. And he's like, but if you wait until you're like 28, you'd have to put in like $500 a month to be able to catch up to the same thing. And I was like, well, that kind of blows. I was like, why didn't he tell me this 10 years ago, right? Like, and I still didn't listen to him. Just want to let you know, I still didn't do good with it. But it was just kind of like this thing, man, if I just started younger, the difference that could have made in my life. And I compared that to another saying, and I've shared this with you before, and I'm telling you, do not trust this stat 100%, but just trust the heart of it. Because I was 18 when I heard this stat, and I still have not been able to find where it's at or to verify it. And so it was also back in the 80s, so I don't know what change has had, but I don't find it all that hard to believe. But someone said if you took 10 people who were 18 years old that were Christians, then 2 of them are going to finish the race. In other words, 8 people are going to walk away from the Lord, walk away from church, or walk away from Christianity somehow. And I don't think we have that hard of a problem acknowledging that we see that all the time. And I thought it was a little crazy, a little over the top, because here I am, 18, I've got all kinds of friends that are Christians, and we're all on fire. I can tell you as a 52-year-old, I really believe that stat. So when we come to this, if you are a youth, and you're in junior high, high school, just out of school, whatever the case may be, first off, invest $50 a month. Secondly, don't play the game. Don't buy into the game. I've been working with kids for 30 years. I love the kids that we have at our church. They mean so much to me. Many of them have been with me since they're both. I'll put you down close to it. Just don't play the game. There's so much culture around you. There's so much calling for your attention. There's so much to get passionate about. And we tend to put Jesus to the side. And we see that little bit of sacrifice that we might have to make. But if you can get it now, every single person that is over the age of 30 in this room would tell you the difference that it would make if they just missed those mistakes. If they just invested in the Lord. If they ran the race and they took it serious and they learned about it and they were doing diligently, it will not take away from your life. It will add to your life, and I pray that for you. And if you're older, I pray you're on that path. I pray that you embrace sacrifice. I pray that you struggle because you know there's something better. I pray that you have victories that turn into testimonies that you can share with others. He's worth it. He's worth it. And if you really want to do a little bit of a self-test, in a year that we have talked about being a friend with Jesus, in a year that we've talked about being there for others and for ourselves when it comes to mental health, when we talk about overcoming obstacles and discipleship through 1 John, and we've gone through this entire year with all these different studies and all these different challenges we had. I've seen many beautiful testimonies come out of it, but let me just ask you personally, in the studies as a church, in your own studies, if you're having your own studies, what change have you made this year? Seriously, what change have you made this year? Because I can also point the areas in my life, I can point the areas in other people's lives, I can point the areas in the life of our church where we've changed nothing when it comes to our finances, our time, our relationships, or our walk with the Lord. And I don't expect you to remember every sermon or every Bible verse that you've read this year. It's like that old story of it's all about nourishment. We're not supposed to remember every dinner we've ever eaten. It's all about nourishment. It all comes together for a purpose. Is there a purpose? Is there a purpose?